Hello, everybody. Welcome to On Being a Creative Catalyst, connecting new music, composers, and community, an official California festival event presented by the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music. I'm Riley Nicholson, the executive director of the Cabrillo Festival, and it's such a pleasure to be working with the festival and to be here today with our music director, CRISTI Măcelaru, who will be moderating the conversation today. We're with 11 truly incredible composers, each of which were composers in residence during our recent 2023 Summer Festival. So the California Festival is a statewide music initiative with over 100 participating organizations, showcasing the most compelling and forward-looking voices in contemporary music. The festival demonstrates how California creative organizations like the Cabrillo Festival are especially passionate and effective in driving new and innovative work into the field. The Cabrillo Festival's latest season, of course, wrapped in mid-August, and our musicians and composers are spread out across the globe. So our contribution to the festival, the California Festival, is something that I think we're uniquely positioned to do. Bringing together a visionary collection of composers to facilitate a conversation about how to be a creative catalyst and to discuss how we all, as presenters, as artists, as audiences, can innovate and create an increasingly vibrant and inclusive art form. So the composers we have with us today, please wave as I briefly introduce you, are Dan Caputo, Anna Clyne, Sebastian Currier, Xavier Foley, Jennifer Higdon, Gabriela Ortiz, Andrea Reinkemeyer, Peter Shin, Sarah Kirkland Snider, Carlos Simon, and Bora Yoon. And of course, today's conversation will be led by our music director, CRISTI Măcelaru. He's going to kick off the conversation shortly. But before we get into our conversation, I thought it would be nice to give you a taste of the Cabrillo Festival. So let's look back at highlights from our recent festival, works by the composers you see before you here today.
Well, that's so amazing. And for me, to be able to see this music come back, actually, and to see the image and to see the pictures and the videos, it brings back so many memories, even though the festival was just a short while ago. And this is really unbelievable to be able to have this. To relive these moments. I'm so happy. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Cristi Măcelaru. I'm the music director of the Cabrillo Festival. And I'm so glad to have this opportunity to share with those that want to learn more about the Cabrillo Festival and what we do, because what we do every year, it's actually quite special. And the idea of bringing together composers, performers, as you could hear, the orchestra is absolutely fabulous. Our festival orchestra that is made up of musicians, incredible musicians from all over the country and all over the world, really. It's really such a special opportunity for us to celebrate the music that is being composed now, the music that exists today and that is being created today, and our relationship with our partners, with the composers, the close-knit audience that supports what we do, and the community that embraces the spirit of what the Cabrillo Festival is. This is really something that I think it's impossible to really replicate anywhere else. And in fact, the Cabrillo Festival continues to be the only festival in the world that is dedicated to contemporary music that is purely written for the orchestra, purely symphonic contemporary music. It still is the only festival that does this. And our first topic, I guess, that we can delve in and to talk about is what makes the focus of the new and recent works for orchestra. What makes this such a unique and powerful, but at the same time, what is the void in the ecosystem of performance and classical music in general? What makes it so necessary for the performers and for the audiences as well? Because it does fit a place in the ecosystem of performance, to have contemporary music that is just for orchestra and that puts a true highlight on just these two aspects. And joining us for this question is Jennifer Higdon, Anna Clyne, and Xavier Foley. Please, so who would like to start? Jennifer, you seem to be ready.
Yeah, I'll say something. I think it's actually one of the things when you get orchestral works performed by professional ensembles, usually you're in a situation where some people in the orchestra would be rather playing some other repertoire, something they played before Beethoven. So it's usually have people who they're all bringing their skill and their high level of playing, but it's not like it's in their heart in the same way that you have when you go into the Cabrillo Festival and these musicians are ready to dig in and they really want the new music. And so sometimes I think that difference in intention and the way you feel about it, I think it makes a big difference for us as composers, because that what you put on the page, if it's not working, it's not the orchestra, it's what you've put on the page. That's really, because the orchestra is just so darn good.
So does it make you more nervous before the first rehearsal in Cabrillo if you feel like the musicians come with so much intensity and desire to do this? Anna, how do you feel about that? Does it make you more nervous or actually more relaxed before the first rehearsal in Cabrillo?
More relaxed. Isn't it? Yeah. So go ahead, Anne. I wonder what you think about that.
No, I think more excited and more relaxed as well. And as you're saying, Cristi, it's a sense of community at Cabrillo. So we feel like we're all in it together, composers, conductors, musicians, which makes it completely unique. And yeah, my feeling is more relaxed and more exciting because the musicians are really prepared and you're in a really nurturing environment with the community of audience members and your fellow participants.
Now, both you, Anna and Jennifer, you have been coming to Cabrillo for many years already. In fact, you've had many compositions already performing Cabrillo. You know exactly what to expect. You are such familiar faces to the festival. The community asks for you all the time. The audience is always excited to see you. But Xavier, this is your first time. in Cabrillo this last summer. So I'm curious from your point of view as first time experiencing the intensity of the place and the intensity of the audience, and at the same time the professionalism of the orchestra. How did you feel?
It was a great time. All the musicians are very high level and can learn very quickly, which is a big bonus when it comes to working on new works that have, the world premiere. I got a great sense of the community. The community is very close, tight knit, and everybody's supportive. And me being my first time, I had a really good time. Not only as a composer, but just getting to meet very good people.
And you brought a unique aspect of who you are, Xavier, because you're not just a fabulous composer, but you're an incredible performer as well. So you actually performed in your own composition, the solo part, the concerto for violin and double bass, and you performed the double bass part. When you perform your own music, do you feel like because for me, sometimes I can imagine when you're performing, you have to wear a different hat, right? You concentrate on what you have to do versus when you're just listening to your own music, you can identify more things. And I was surprised actually at how many things you were able to pick up just from what was going on in the orchestra, while also concentrating on your own part to perform. Is this something that just because you're so used to doing both at the same time, does this come easily to you, or do you sometimes feel like if you focus too much on what you do, you miss what's happening behind you in the orchestra?
Yeah, so when I perform my own works with the orchestra, I'm not really concerned about my playing because I can only focus on one thing at a time. So whatever sound comes out of my instrument is what comes out. I'm more concerned about, is the balance okay? Are people together? Did I write music that the players can understand, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the situation for me.
Yeah. Anna, you also experimented a little bit with a new direction in your music at the festival. Do you want to talk a little bit about that collaboration?
Sure, yes, it's a collaboration with Jodie Elf, who's an audio engineer, and also my husband. So it's a family exploration called the Augmented Orchestra, whereby we did some live processing of the orchestra. So an example we heard in the clip is a walking cello and double bass line. And in the second time we hear it, we pitch shift the double basses down 2 octaves in real time. So you get it coming through the subwoofers, this sort of deep sounds. So expanding the sound world that's available to you, expanding the range of the orchestra, but really starting with the orchestra itself. So we're really grateful that the Cabrillo Festival collaborated with us in exploring this for the first time this past summer.
Exactly, and it's not a coincidence that the three of you are part of this conversation, because I pay a lot of attention and try to always find threads between what we present and little connections that we have. So each one of the three pieces that you brought to the festival this year had to do with a collaboration that was either a pair of some kind of a collaboration, Anna, as you said, collaborating with your husband, with your partner, then Xavier, you were both performing, but it was a double concerto as well. So you were collaborating with the violin, and then Jennifer, you brought to the festival the percussion concerto, which was written for two players, right?
Yeah, it was kind of for me, I thought it was just a delight because I've had enough concerti at Cabrillo. I thought, okay, no matter what goes on, we're just going to have fun. So, but I know Svet has been a long-time player in the orchestra, so it was also the luck of having him there as part of that, because I had him play other pieces of mine. But, it's such a high level, the orchestra, just working with all of the orchestra is such an incredible experience. I mean, as a composer, I'm still changing things from talking to the players in the orchestra. They're so great at saying, well, this might work better this way. And that's one of the things I love about it.
Yeah, we have, and Svet is a perfect example of the level of artistry that is in the orchestra, because I really think all the musicians in the orchestra are at the level of playing where they can do what Svet did, which was stand in front of the ensemble and perform a concerto as well. So we are very, very careful and dedicated to maintaining the level of the orchestra. And I have to say, for those that don't know this, the way to enter the Cabrillo Festival Orchestra, first of all, you have to agree to our mission statement, which is to bring a positive attitude to what we do. It's the number one requirement for the musicians that join the orchestra. Is you have to provide this environment that really celebrates inclusion and being supportive and being community oriented in everything that we do. And I think this speaks so beautifully about our own mission and how we are able to achieve the things that we do. I want to also make sure that I remind everyone and I let everyone know that if you have questions for us, there will be a Q&A at the very end, and we will take all your questions. I'm told here to tell you that there is a question form on the page you are viewing. And at the end of the event, when we will bring everything together, I will be able to see all the questions. So at any point during this event, you can write your questions, and then we'll be able to ask. All the composers will join us at the end so that we can see how many of your questions we can answer. Now, part of the secret sauce of the Cabrillo Festival is the collaborative spirit and structure of the festival, where all the composers are invited to join all the rehearsals. And not just invited to join the rehearsals, but they are really part of the rehearsal process. Not just listening, but I always ask a lot of questions and always prompt the composers to answer questions. Part of the design of the festival is that we have open rehearsals where live and virtual audiences as well, something we started during the pandemic, can see this process in action. So we invite the audiences, the community, to be part of the creative process, which is, I think, one of the really, truly unique features of the Cabrillo Festival. Here are a few highlights and examples of what this feels like.
I think it has to be such a huge difference in the way that we change characters here. So this very gentle, very intimate.
Yeah, and if we could have the strings do the same thing they did in the beginning with the kind of wispiness.
Yeah.
I think the key is to not focus necessarily on the whole bow, but
Yes.
enough bow in a flotando and non-accented way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's not necessarily the whole bow at this speed, I don't think.
We wound up doing like upper 2/3
Yeah.
and super Tosca.
That's very brilliant. That's a lot. So what else?
While we're talking at did you switch to all uppers?
I think we're gonna do that. It's a little easier to stay mechanical.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. I'm just trying to be involved in this conversation you two are having. So let's do. This is rehearsal O, please. Rehearsal O. So we just have to find a way that whatever little phraselet you hear before your little gesture, that it's connected rhythmically with what you do. You know what I mean? So that ta 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 pam para pam ti pam pam pa. So that it's really all connected. May we try once again? I know that you have sextuplets. I'm just singing the trumpet part. I'm not wrong, Justin. 209. And that's not today. Exactly. Now I think it would be a good idea to start at 204 at the beginning of this passage and do it in tempo. Yeah. At the beginning, so we can mezzo piano, right?
But still rhythmically now this is feeling a little out of place.
So less sul ponticello at the beginning with the mezzo piano, and then when the pianissimo comes back later, you write just sul ponte, not poco.
Exactly.
So it's different.
Yes.
Yes. I think let's do it differently. Yeah. Oh, this is why I love Cabrillo. Like these tiny little details. You know, Sam always reminds me of these little details. No, but it's true. Yeah, and this place actually surprised me in the fortissimo and the viola and cello, the slight crunch, right? Did you have enough sound on this one?
I thought it worked.
You thought it worked? I don't know. I for some reason I was anticipating slight.
Like too much crunch or just not?
No, like it didn't have enough arrival, the fortissimo, right? Because you guys arrive at I, right, from the crescendo.
We do. It is technically still harmonic, so even though it's crunch, there's still like with everything else that's going on, it's just not that audible.
So it's just like a beautiful solo, basically.
Yeah. That was my arpeggione.
The arpeggione. With Schubert, a little Schubert, yes. Okay, all right. So then this with the pizzicato, and then at the beginning. Can we just try the beginning once again? I feel like it takes us just a little bit, because you know, is the solo violin supposed to like really be together with the timpani, or can he become independent?
It can be.
Ah, okay, then it's great.
Oh, it's always difficult to watch myself during rehearsals because I try to be in the moment, you know. But it's also so fun to see the collaborative spirit because it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to see a rehearsal of an orchestra where everyone is really involved, everyone is in the moment, everyone is paying attention, and everyone is trying to achieve the goal, which is to perform the music that the composers, which, you know, they are all present to perform this music with the highest level of professionalism, intensity, but at the same time with love and with care. So it's so wonderful to see that there really is no other place on the planet like this. So here's a question for our composers responding in this segment: Sarah Kirkland Snider, Sebastian Currier, and Jennifer Higdon. What, in your opinion, what makes this collaborative process work, and what does it mean for all involved? You know, the ultimate musical product itself, the composers, the musicians. Like, what does it mean for you to have this kind of involvement and this kind of back and forth from the musicians, and to be able to have the direct link to them? Sebastian.
Sure. You know, I think it's something. It's sort of this gestalt of everything too. That's very different for those. I mean, for those of you who don't know, like normally orchestral rehearsals and performances is a very formal thing. And here you have, on the one hand, we interact with you a lot. The musicians are very open. You talk to them after, before, they come up with questions. The audience is actually interacts with you, which is great. That happens so little. And then also we listen to our colleagues' pieces, which is really fun to sort of hear it take shape because we don't know the piece, you know, so we sort of get to experience that too. So I think there's something that having all of them together just makes it, for me, this very different experience. But that's really wonderful and great. And like, I learn a lot, and it's just a lot of fun, basically, you know.
Sarah, tell us, because, Sebastian said one thing that I always forget, actually, because I'm always involved in the process, but it's also very rare that you get to be around other composers, right? That their music is being performed, they are listening to their music take shape, and then there becomes this sort of supportive spirit around the room, also from the composers, because it's usually 10, 12, 14 composers in the room that are listening to each other's music. What does that feel like?
Yeah, it's really special and wonderful. I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like it. I would get lots of feedback from my peer composers, and I would also be able to ask them questions about their pieces and hear the way that they communicate with players and with the conductor. And you really start to understand, just the level of what the composer's intentions are and the ways that we can articulate them better and the ways that we can communicate with players. It's just an incredibly special thing to get to witness and to learn from.
Jennifer, can I ask you, because I'm not a composer. I've tried composing in the past myself, just for fun as a hobby. But the difference for me listening to 100 or 200-year-old music versus listening to music that was written really recently is actually music that it's written now inspires me to want to compose, versus like when I listen to a Mahler symphony, I don't want to compose, But when I listen to music of today, there's an element of courage that I receive from seeing other people that are alive today, that are just, regular human beings, that they can do it. It actually makes me want to try to compose again. Do you find inspiration in listening to your colleagues' performances?
Oh, yeah. And it's, I learn from my colleagues because I'm always like, oh, that's brilliant. I sit through the rehearsals just thinking what an amazing thing it is, because we all have our own kinds of rhythms and our own kinds of pacing. And the Cabrillo Orchestra is able to do everything well right out of the gate, because a lot of orchestras, when you're off and on with Beethoven or something, they spend a considerable amount of time, so they don't ever get to go into the in-depth thought that goes down with, should it be sul pont differently at the end? Should it be sul tasto? Should it be everybody? That's the kind of stuff we don't get to try. But it's also for all of us who are in the room, which it's amazing to be there with all the composers. I think this is the only time this ever happens. We are all learning from the experience of watching the experimentation and trying things. And it's so inspiring. But the other thing is, this is music of our time. This is music that reflects our world. So there's something fantastic about being able to share that with each other, with the musicians, with you, and with the audiences that come into the rehearsals.
I do have to say, actually, just for those that don't know, the videos that we're presenting are just sort of randomly selected from all the videos that we've had the whole season. It's not, it wasn't a pre-planned thing where it's okay, we're going to do something so that, no, this is just what the rehearsals in Cabrillo are like. And you are, I guess, my witnesses that this is the real truth, because one of the things that I discovered as a conductor, of course, as a conductor, most of the time, I'm the one that speaks, I would say 99% of the time, and then very little feedback is given immediately in the moment. Just traditionally, it's been this way, the hierarchy. But in Cabrillo, I love the fact that it really feels like a chamber music rehearsal, much more than an orchestra rehearsal. It's like a quartet rehearsal where, we have these conversations all the time, and people, I really meant that. I mean, Sam, who's our principal violist, he is so specific about all these little details. And I always study the viola part extra carefully, just knowing that there will be a question from Sam that I've missed, something I've missed. And in your case, Sebastian, was the difference between poco sul ponticello versus just sul ponticello. And the poco sul ponticello is almost sul ponticello, but and it might be so, when you write those tiny, tiny little details in the score as a composer, do you just hope that one day some performer will actually notice the difference between poco sul ponticello or just sul ponticello? Or how, what makes you what drives you to make those kind of decisions?
Yeah, I mein, of course, you hope and it happens sometimes. So it's like it's worth it. But yeah, those two, because I always think of like Soul Pont, it's like this really new music extreme, but then there's a lot of range between there and a normal. If you want just something that's a little thinner sound, I use Poco Soul Pont, and yeah, sometimes it goes by and unnoticed, but you're that's noticed, and that's wonderful. That's great. I love both. Well, I'm sure we all do love such attention to details and having the time to do that. That's pretty great.
Now, Sarah, in your case, this was a piece that was performed before. It wasn't a world premiere in Cabrillo, and it was performed by a wonderful ensemble. It's not necessary to name, but how does it feel, or how did it feel differently to actually have it performed in Cabrillo? Just because it's so important for us to understand the context of where Cabrillo remains in this world where actually more and more contemporary music is being embraced and performed all over the country. So how does Cabrillo continue to remain actually special?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked this, because I was very fortunate to have a wonderful performance of the piece before this. However, the Cabrillo performance took that level of performance and exponentially improved it, which I didn't know was possible. I was able to go so much deeper with the orchestra into the details and to really bring out different lines and terrace the dynamics and make all of my intentions so much clearer because of all the communication I had with the orchestra and with you. I mean, this was hands down the best orchestral performance I've ever received of any piece of mine, which is a testament not just to you and the players, but again, to the process of the collaboration, the level of care of the players, but just the ability to really dig into the details verbally and get the best results and talk with all the players. It's like you said, it's more like a quartet rehearsal than an orchestral rehearsal. And because of that back and forth, that dialogue, you can just really bring the music to such a greater three-dimensionality and technicolor representation of your ideas and your intentions. And sometimes you don't even know how much better it can be until you get in there and start dialoguing with the players, and I was getting ideas on the spot, and the way that we were working, it was magical. I can't say enough good things about it. I've never had an experience like this, and I'm not sure that it's possible outside of Cabrillo really to have an experience quite like this.
Well, I think the first step to make it possible outside of Cabrillo, from a conductor that conducts, every week somewhere in a program, I really think one of the simplest answers in what we do in Cabrillo that makes it so successful is the fact that we dedicate the proper amount of time for the rehearsals, where the piece can grow, develop, mature, season. This music needs time. The music of today needs the proper amount of time to be able to be understood by the musicians. It's one thing to execute a musical note. It's another one to make music out of it. Mm-hmm. And I think the time actually, for those that don't know, of course, we have, for every program, we have 3 rehearsals plus a general rehearsal. And I would say there's so much luxury in having that much time to focus on the contemporary piece on the program, so to speak, that happens in a normal season outside. That it's really what I love the most, because even if at the first rehearsal, the orchestra is very well prepared and the music sounds good, I know that there's always another level of depth and of beauty that can be achieved. And I love that. I love that about Cabrillo. It's really, it's something that I would embrace every orchestra to do, because great music written today, if it receives the right amount of time, it really stands alongside Beethoven and Mahler and whoever you want to name. Just the same way that a bad performance of Beethoven, will have the same effect as a bad performance of music today. It's fascinating. Well, as I already said, more and more contemporary music is being played in both regional and the nation's top orchestras, which is really a wonderful thing. Yet Cabrillo remains unique in its exclusive focus on contemporary music, as well as its organizational culture and structure. We are committed to presenting voices that also push the boundaries of our platform, and our art form. All our composers represent this in a very huge myriad of ways. And I would like for us now to listen to some excerpts by Bora Yoon, Gabriela Ortiz, and Dan Caputo, which demonstrate this innovative spirit. Yes, so the composers that we have joining us on this segment, and before we go there, I want to remind everyone, if you have questions for us about anything really about Cabrillo, questions directly to the composers that have joined us, please write to us at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll be able to take these questions at the very end. So the composers joining me for this section are Bora Yoon, Gabriela Ortiz, and Dan Caputo. And it's so wonderful to hear your music again and to see a little bit of what went on. I mean, to relive those moments so beautifully. Gabriela, can I start with you? Because I think one of the innovative things for your piece was you split the brass section, right, in two ways, so that there's this antiphonal effect that is very unusual, because orchestras today have a pretty standard setup on stage, and then you have. Why was this? Why did you decide to do this change in the setup?
Well, there are many reasons. As you remember, Marcelo, this piece is called Sam, and it means dialogue. And I wrote this piece. I wrote this piece because my father passed away. My former teacher, Mario Lavista, also passed away. Everything happened during the pandemic. And Sam, it's a word in a Japaneco, which is one of the distinguished language. Only 10 people remains to speak in a Japaneco. This is in the state of Tabasco, Mexico. And it means dialogue. So I wanted to establish this dialogue between myself and my dead people. And I wanted to start with a fanfare and divide it actually in the to create this stereophonic dialogue. That's why I decided to split, the brass instruments and one side in the right and in the left side, so that I can establish this kind of dialogue and have this stereophonic kind of effect. So that was one of the reasons.
Beautiful. And then I'm going to jump to you, because your piece, Liminal, which is a piece that I met a few years ago when I met you the first time. And it was a piece that stayed with me for such a long time, because, it was one of those pieces that required so much focus from me, because there's constant shifts in tempo, in speed, in time signature, in all these things. But at the same time, when you listen to it, it just feels so organic and natural. It's one of those pieces where you don't feel like you need to have an inner pulse to follow along. It just kind of takes you places. And I think this kind of represented a little bit what you wanted to say with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when writing the piece, it was definitely an interest I had is, what can the orchestra accomplish? What have people, composers accomplished historically with it? And then what can I sort of bring to the table in terms of just trying out something new, get the orchestra to move and behave in new ways that maybe perhaps these complicated rhythms, these constantly changing time signatures, all these extremely minute details in timbre, like how sound is produced. It's just something I'm always very interested in, and getting such a large body of musicians to, create sound together. It's not about the individual, it's about the entire body, the organism of the orchestra, was something I was very interested in dealing with, and I think just working with Cabrillo was such a great experience, because before even showing up to the first rehearsal, everybody kind of knew what I was getting at, and if they didn't, they picked up on it so fast, and I was just so excited about that, just the quickness that they took on my ideas.
Just so that people understand a little bit more, it's not just about the time signature change for Dan in the piece, but it's also the speed. So it's like the speed of the gesture. It sounds like the same gesture, but the speed is just either a little bit slower, a little bit faster. It moves like every single one, which is like, it's really impossible to find a good way to notate it, because it's so challenging, right?
Yeah. I think part of my inspiration is just taking sounds and references that I just really like in music I listen to. And one idea that I was trying to explore in the section you're talking about specifically was sort of like when you have a record player and you can change the speed between like 33 and 45 RPM, and everything slows down, pitch changes. And I was just sort of trying to see how can I recreate this sort of physical phenomenon with this human group of people, which, as you say, not very straightforward, lots of counting and lots of work on your end to sort of accomplish it. But for me, it was worth sort of all that effort to try to get that effect.
And for me, it was all the effort to put in the time, because I really love the effect. Now, Bora, your piece, and I remember when I was listening to it, what I remember, and it will stay with me forever, is actually you singing to the orchestra how this music should go. Because you were trying to tell them, tati, papa, papa. Papa, papa. You were talking about the character of the music in a way that was so beautiful and organic. And you said something to the orchestra that you said that at first you didn't even think about putting real pitches. You just wanted them to make the gestures, whatever, right? Is that, yeah.
There's the opening theme in The Wind of Two Koreas, which I'm just absolutely thrilled and delighted with the performance of this summer. Opens kind of with a very cartoonish gesture where the orchestra is playing the upper strings are playing kind of in these atonal clusters that are just more rhythmic in gesture and more personifying a schizophrenic and kind of unhinged kind of melody that's skipping by. And so there was definitely a moment I wondered how to engrave this in a way that was not going to encumber players to actually be specific about notes, but actually be more excited about the gesture and kind of the larger characteristic that is. So it wasn't so much about specificity or about technical accuracy, rhythmically accurate, but pitch-wise could be anything. So that it really just was more an inflection of tone, an inflection of how sentences go or how arguments are heard maybe through a wall. Like, and so you kind of hear these sentence structures or these kind of exclamations that go back and forth. So yeah, the orchestration of this one was interesting because at a certain point it was always about how do we imitate voices or how do we imitate gestures and kind of graft it onto these beautiful new timbre palettes that can then create different color and light and inflection and tone, sarcasm, different personifications.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's another piece actually that I've performed before, and it has stayed with me for all these reasons because it has such a vivid image that it produces. You know that you can't really forget it. Now, the three of you have one thing in common, which is it was your first time in Cabrillo, and I'm really curious. Is there if you were to pick one thing that you would like to take from the Cabrillo experience that you had last summer, what would be that one thing that you would take with you as you continue your regular composer life, Gabriela?
Well, you know, one of the things that I really loved being at Cabrillo Festival is that I felt at home. And what I'm trying to say is that normally, you know, when my music has been played, I mean, I'm not saying that in all the places, but in many places, people tend to label, you know, what I do. I mean, people tend to label that, oh, this is from Latin America. She's a woman composer. She's from Mexico. So maybe we have to program her music in the context of a fiesta or in the context of, and at Cabrillo, I didn't feel like that. I felt totally free that I'm here because, you know, I want to share my music. Despite where I'm come from, or, you know, despite that I'm from Latin America, I'm from Mexico, I feel at home in that sense. And I felt that there were no boundaries, you know, that, you know, in that kind of thing. And it was incredible also to be able to share these experiences with the other composers and with an orchestra that is totally open to the music. And we discuss about music. We don't have to discuss, oh, you're Mexican or you're a women composer. Let's get into the thing. Let's get into the topic and let's get into the music, which is the core of the whole, you know, idea, no? And I felt really, really happy because of that.
No, you have no idea how touched I am by your words, because it's something that we try to put at the forefront of what our statement and our mission is to create exactly this place that you are describing. And the fact that you felt it, you know, it just inspires me to work even harder, you know, because I think that the more we can do this for each other, the better the world is, you know. Bora, what's your takeaway?
Gosh, I mean, the Cabrillo experience is something, it's so special to have a sense of proximity to conductors, proximity to players, to be the level of access, I suppose. You know, I second that sentiment, Gabriela, of just how close and how you have to feel safe in order to take risks, right? And I feel like the workshop, the culture there is just so supportive of new music and prioritizing that trust and willingness and excitement to workshop new ideas is something that, to me, I would love to take that from Cabrillo, this sense of resonating music from the inside out. I think in our world, a lot of times when we market music and when we talk about music, it's externalized and it's seen from the outside in, which sometimes accentuates things of how they are different necessarily more than how they are similar. And I feel like at Cabrillo, we come at the music from the inside out. And that to me is the number one thing I love taking from this festival is like what we do in those workshops and the sense of proximity we have to one another is something that's so special. And I think it's something that we have an opportunity to shape as our generation of symphonic music, but that the culture can change, that it does not have to be such a kind of hierarchical or very tiered or terraced process, that it can be something that can have the intimacy of chamber collaborations, but also on a very large and symphonic scale.
Amazing. Yeah, I love the idea that it's not just our opportunity, but our responsibility to change. The things that we want to change. From maybe one rehearsal being this way, and then that leads to two, and then to a season, and then to a whole culture of it. Dan, how do you feel about it?
Sure. Well, to add to what Gabriela and Bora had to say, I guess if I could take anything, I would take the audience everywhere I go. And really, it's more than just an audience; it's a community. Like I go back to the first day, my first rehearsal on the first Wednesday. The Cabrillo has open rehearsals, so the audience is able to come in and see the rehearsal process, see how it works. And so my piece gets rehearsed. We have a break for lunch, and I think I was at a CVS just getting some extra stuff because I didn't pack enough things. And somebody walked up to me and just started a conversation saying, "Oh, I heard your piece in the rehearsal," and had all these questions. And the same was true through the whole week that I was there. Cabrillo was just such a generous and thoughtful and engaged audience, and it's just so cool to see that. And I kind of wish, and it's a testament to Cabrillo itself that you've curated these 61 years as a festival, that the audience has been along for the ride this whole time, and still loves that engagement with the composers, the musicians, with you, CRISTI. It's really nice.
Yeah, that's really, to me, it's a reminder every summer when I return, But then again, like not that I forget it, but it becomes something that is just normal. And then when I experience it again, it really shocks me how beautiful it is. The fact that there are all these people that come to all the rehearsals, and they watch the rehearsals, and then they are so invested in the creative process, which actually makes us perform better. I really do believe that extra element of the audience knowing the music and understanding and being with you, supporting what we're doing, and rooting for you from the other side, it's such a beautiful representation of the difference between a passive audience and an active audience, because an active audience that is involved in the process will always bring out something special from the musicians. I really believe that. Well, contemporary music has the distinct advantage that composers can connect with the audience and the communities, and can be seen as three-dimensional individuals. Here are some examples from the recent festival season demonstrating the composers and their personal introductions to the pieces, which made their experience of their works exponentially more powerful and personal.
Thank you. I wanted to start off by playing that Negro spiritual, Steal Away, which is very much a part of this piece, and it really speaks to the theme of this work, which is around freedom and hope and struggle. The second movement is called The Flying Africans, and this is a story that it's based on the story that where all Africans used to know how to fly until they were enslaved. And so I use the spiritual that I just played, Steal Away. The words are, if you're unfamiliar with steal away home. I ain't got time to stay here. I ain't got long to stay here.
But what I did know of Korea was this Korean folk song that I used to sing growing up in my Korean Sunday school class growing up in Kansas City, Missouri. And so that comes up in my piece. About 3/4 of the way through my piece, you'll hear this folk song. But what I do is interrupt it incessantly with these huge orchestra attacks. And that's supposed to signify this idea of relapse. That with all these huge hits, all these life circumstances that get in the way of our progress, it feels like we're being flung back to the beginning of our journey. The melody in my piece, it prevails. And it was with this sort of idea of hopefulness that I started my journey of self-discovery, that I wrote this piece. And I'm very proud of that, Peter, for having that sense of hope. As you're listening to my piece, I hope that you think about your own journeys and that you're reminded of all of the progress that you've made in your life. And let's just celebrate the fact that we all individually made it to this moment together.
My piece, Water Sings Fire, has two main influences. The first was that during 2017 and 18, you might remember, we just had story after story come out from the Me Too movement, some very horrifying things that kind of culminated in Christine Blasey Ford's testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee. Kind of against that, I discovered Leigh Bardugo's short story called When Water Sings Fire. And in the story, she imagines how did Ursula the Sea Witch become this thing of our nightmares. So this piece kind of picks up with that thing of what Ursula kind of stewing in the deep, thinking about all the ways that, you know, her wonderful power was taken from her.
Yes, for those that are joining us just now, please, if you have questions, we will take them in about 10 minutes. The questions, if you want to ask, please write at the bottom of your screen, and then we'll be able to read them. As you can also tell, we encourage all the composers to introduce their own pieces, their own music, because we feel that the personal connection that we are able to bring in the festival, in the Cabrillo Festival, is really one of the core parts of our mission and our experiences, to connect the audience, to connect the musicians with the composers, and together to take on this journey of the creative experience. I have a question here, and the composers that we've invited for this segment, Carlos, Simon Peter Shin, and Andrea Reinkemeyer. And the question is, how can we as artists and presenters best leverage our individuality our personal stories, our idiosyncratic artistic inspirations and styles to allow audiences to experience our music on a deeper level and build community around the artistic process itself. Carlos, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's great to be here. I really want to say that. Yeah. So I mean, I think I think as a composer, as a musician, as an artist, one of the things I had to learn, it was very difficult to do, is that, you know, your art and the music that you make is often, you know, a reflection of your soul. And it's on display to everyone to see, you know, for everyone to see. And so a lot of times, you know, at the very beginning, you know, for me, when I was writing a piece that felt very intimate, and I was like, you know, this is who I am, I felt like I was naked on stage, you know, and allowing yourself as a composer to have that sort of vulnerability when you write music, I think it's important. And you know, just having some sense of intimacy with your music. And then that's my, I always go to that. Am I being honest with my music, and I'm being completely truthful? And you know, a lot of times I see a lot of composers, they write, young composers, especially my students, they are trying to do exercises, if you will, learning their craft about orchestration. But I try to encourage them just to be, well, who are you? How does that reflect in your music? You know, it's one thing to do the techniques, extend the techniques, and all the things that we all learn in school, but how does that, you know, reflect who you are as a person in your music, and how, and in turn, it'll help someone else, you know, and who's listening to the piece.
Yes, I oftentimes am reminded conversations over the years that I've been friends with the great Wynton Marsalis, and he always talks about the fact that it's all personal. He says it's all personal. It has to be personal, because he said, you know, the music is just a language, really. And if you make it the language of trying to connect us on a personal level, that is what we're interested in. We're interested in each other, you know, where we want to know who we are, you know, and to know each other. And I think the music actually facilitates the discovery process, which is so beautiful. Peter, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. I wish that I could say I've mastered the art of the pre-concert speech, but as you just yeah, all the surrounding events of the concert, this is my biggest anxiety, and maybe the other composers can relate. But if the orchestra messes up, whatever, the audience will not even notice, or people don't like the piece, I respect your opinion and I agree it can be better. But if I blank on stage with stage lights and a microphone in my face and 100 people silently staring at me, I will, for the next 10 years, consider moving to another country and changing my name.
I don't think you have to worry about that. It was fantastic, Peter.
Thank you. Even Ellen, the past executive director, she gave me an anxiety patch to put on my shoulder and was like, here, I think you need this more than me. But both times I've given the pre-concert speech at Cabrillo, I've never regretted it, and I feel like it was all worth it when an audience member comes up to me after the concert and says, you know, that thing that you said really resonated with me, and they share their own story. I love all those little connections that I make after the concert, and all because of something I said on stage. So those little moments are really meaningful to me.
Beautiful. Andrea?
I always kind of think of our music as being a conversation starter. And even if we all have our own individual lived experiences, but we've all felt joy, we've all felt pain, we've all felt anxiety, we've all felt a myriad of complex emotions. And so I think if we kind of share with audiences, here's what I was thinking about, here's what's on my heart, it allows them to say, oh, well, maybe I didn't have that exact experience, but I had one that was similar to that, and I felt that too. And like Peter just said, it really helps us connect with other people. And you know, someone actually reached out to me and said, well, you know, if you want to write a note,
I actually know Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, and I'll pass it along to her. And I was like, what? That's amazing. So just one of these things that I mentioned, you know, that was weighing on me kind of. I don't know if she ever got the note. I hope she did. But it just made this connection that was really meaningful. And like Carlos said too, I always love it when students bring in their side projects, because that's when you kind of really get to see what people are about for the first time in a lesson, composition lesson. And I'm like, this is actually what you kind of need to be doing. So I love seeing those things that are truly honest in other artists.
Yeah, that almost opens up. We don't have the time, but it opens up like a whole new discussion about how does one teach composition? You know, because composition, it's something so personal and so precious, you know, of your own and your own voice. And I think the composers that end up being the ones that have the courage and are able to, I really think the composers are the most courageous people of all artists, because you share what's the deepest personal moment. You know, you share something that is so from the inside, more than any other artist. And you're vulnerable, you know, and you leave your vulnerability there in front of everyone. And then, yeah, I mean, I really thank you for doing that, because I think the beauty about that is the more personal you are, the better the music and the connection is overall. And with that, I would like to actually open up and invite all our composers back so that we can have this little Q&A session. There are many questions that have come in. And thank you all for returning. And I'm going to start reading some questions, and then we'll take the answers as well. So the first question that I have comes from Mark, and it says, do any of the composers see the possibility of changing their composition substantially as a result of hearing the Cabrillo performers? In other words, Cabrillo is both a destination and a workshop on an ongoing process? Question. Who would like to take this one? Sebastian.
Oh, I don't know. I guess that's probably a thing. You have a lifetime of sort of a rhythm with that, and there are always things and pieces, and you're always asking yourself, should I go back and fix that, or should I just, you know, try to get it right? Like sort of with relationships, you know, next get it right. So I tend to be in that latter category. Nonetheless, you do learn for the next piece. You learn about things from that experience all the time, both from rehearsals, from reception, from everything. I mean, it's always, I mean, I think people have been saying that, you know, writing music is a dialogue, right? It's a human interface. And so I think all of that you're always learning and changing from, even if I don't specifically go back and, you know, rewrite a few messages or something like that. It's something more broad and important, I think, that does come from.
Yeah, I tend to think that my pieces are like sort of like time capsules of who I was when I was writing a piece. You know, so I try not to revise anything, or because it's like asking the question, what would you change if you had to go back and, you know, do something else? It's like, no, it's what got me here is what I did back then. So I wouldn't change anything. You know, but I think the nuances, you know, small things that would depend on the hall, you know, like, okay, so strings that mezzo piano to a mezzo forte because it's not loud enough, you know, that sort of thing you can fix on the fly. But it doesn't change the music of the structure of the piece, is what I'm saying.
Bora, there's a direct question for you. It says, would you feel comfortable sharing how you balance analog/acoustic instruments and digital tools, notation or production software when composing? You introduced me to a world of different sounds in your O Viridissima Virga. Thank you so much. It's from Marie Christine.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you, Marie, for that question. You know, in my solo work as a performer composer where I work in the electroacoustic realm is what she's speaking about as it transfers to the symphonic palette. And that actually will be explored in the coming year with this Creative Lab new work that will be in the next iteration of Cabrillo. This past August was a fully symphonic work, and so there was not actually melding of electronics this time. But in my work where I do that, I often think about what is the sound palette that the orchestra what is that is complementary to the orchestral palette. I mean, the orchestral palette has everything within it, but the one thing that is actually the difference between the electronic realm is the amplification, this idea of scale of sound. So if you're going to use electronics at all with symphonic, I feel like certainly don't double up anything and certainly don't be redundant, but how can you complement and scale or bring out texture or sound design in such a way that complements the timbre palette that is already happening organically, spatially, acoustically, and then be able to utilize the electronic realm then as an extension of that, but never as something that is taking the place of or being redundant, but if anything, an extension of that palette, and how to see that as a language or a sensory language to craft with the tonal language of the orchestra.
Interesting, very cool. We have another open question for everyone. This is quite of an interesting one, actually. What is a good introduction for those who are just starting to include orchestral works as part of their music listening, or who want to engage others in doing so? Well, I think we should start with your music, for sure. But do you have if you're trying to introduce someone to the classical music art form, and especially to get them up to speed, historically speaking, so to come to the music of today, what would you what do you have one of your compositions that you would suggest to them that they listen to first? I'm just curious. Who wants to start?
I was gonna say my there are two pieces for me. Blue Cathedral seems to be the one that most people, and even musicians and orchestras, say when they were in high school, that was like the first piece they played that made them want to do new music. But a lot of times my Bluegrass Concerto, which has been done at the Cabrillo Festival, gets used because it kind of crosses different genres. And so it often pulls in people who are not normally going to a symphonic concert, but are shocked when they get to hear the orchestra, and then they get excited and they're like, oh, I'm coming back. So
Anna, what do you think about that?
Oh, well, I guess in terms of historical pieces that still feel really fresh. So a couple of weeks ago, I heard The Rite of Spring, which still feels like the ink's drying on the page, is still so fresh. So in terms of starting pieces like that, in terms of my pieces, I think my favorite piece of mine is a piece called Within Her Arms, which is actually chamber pieces for 15 strings, or a cello concerto I have called Dance, which feel very vulnerable pieces like we were talking about earlier. I think that can be the hardest thing as the composer, is to put your heart on your sleeve, as it were. So those two pieces.
Xavier, you actually paid tribute in your piece to composition by Mahler, right? So where would you begin someone that wants to hear music for the first time? Would you introduce them to Mahler symphonies right away, or would you encourage them to listen to something else before?
The Mahler thing, actually, I heard that before I started music, probably in some cartoon, that thing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it worked. I mean, it got me ready for what to expect in orchestra. So, simple stuff like that. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I mean, when I was 8, 9, I would listen to like Looney Tunes all the time. That was some good stuff, and that kind of it helped. It was probably a bad answer because I brought up Looney Tunes. I mean, I don't know, just I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry.
Well, there are some fabulous compositions actually used, in the Looney Tunes cartoons. I listen, and actually there are more and more orchestras that are playing some of that music or try to play it. It's very difficult, and it's unbelievably skilled and well written. So it's really quite incredible. Come back to another question here, Jennifer. This is one for you. And it starts like this. It says, question for Ms. Higdon, full disclosure. I may think you are the greatest living composer if I had to choose so. Take it in that context, the question. Like Messiaen, your music uses specific idiomatic elements, which are also mnemonic. In your case, the rhythmic motifs that instantly identify it as your music, but all the music has its own individual identity. My question is kind of broad, but in the contemporary idiom, do you think that music must have idiomatic mnemonic elements for a person's musical voice to survive? Does the architecture have to be audible now?
Oh, that's a really good question, because I tend not to I don't think about architecture. I don't actually think about form. I write through composed works, but I think the thing that makes music survive is that it comes from the heart of the composer. It's not a system that you're just putting down on the page. It's something you actually feel. And I think that's the thing that resonates in people, which is kind of an answer that's not really an answer, but it is. It is actually the answer. It's just that I think and especially, I've always thought this about Cabrillo, because everyone comes with a different experience. The pieces are so different, and yet you can always feel the intention. You can feel the passion for what someone is saying, their storytelling. But it also is something that comes from deep inside that's very hard to put your finger on. And I always refer to it as the magic in music. It's the one thing we can't explain. So I guess intent, it may be the bigger playing card of power there. And I often look at all art being that way. And the thing that I love about the fact that we have music now that's at Cabrillo, that's the contemporary voice, it's a reflection of our world, all of our experiences, whether it's Me Too or something from the past. It's just all, I don't know, it carries a lot of heart, but that heart also speaks to the experience of people living now. I think that's the thing that's the most important. So I may not be thinking in such theoretical or formal constructs. Sometimes they're there. People doing dissertations find them, and I'm always shocked when they find anything. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was there.
So it's less that you have identified a special rhythmical idiom that is identified with your music, and it's more that because you always speak from your heart, this just happens to be who you are.
Right. And, I'm never thinking overtly about what I'm putting on the page that consciously. So sometimes it's a surprise to me when I hear it all come together, and I always wonder, how the heck did that happen, and where did those rhythms come from? But we all have rhythms in our lives from the languages we grew up around, and the kind of the sound world that surrounded us as kids, whether it was Looney Tunes, or Disney movies or something like that. That's the interesting thing, our sound worlds. That's why Beethoven sounds very different than Debussy. You think about what their world is like. And so it's and we've all been influenced by John Williams film scores. There's just like no getting around it, just because we're kind of like surrounded by this stuff. But that's also what makes it so wonderful. And I'm often pointing out to people that they're shocked. They're like, there are classical composers around. And I'm like, yeah, all the video games your kids play, some classical composer wrote that. Every movie soundtrack you hear, some classical composer wrote that. I said, it's more around you than you realize, and it's being done at a very high level. So, and sometimes we're doing it just with feelings, which is, you just have a lot of training behind it. I think maybe that's the trick. So.
Yeah, and this leads actually to the next question, which is life as an artist isn't promoted by communities as a worthwhile endeavor in terms of sustainability or financial gain. How do we encourage the next generation to pursue these important roles and continue building legacies of creation and artistic growth? Does this responsibility fall to the artist or to the community? Who would like to take this on? Sarah, what do you think?
Oh boy. I mean, I really believe that the responsibility falls to the community. I think I wish that that it were easier to sustain a career as a creative artist in this country. I think it's very, very difficult. And I think it's unfortunate because I think there are a lot of people who could be out there expressing themselves musically and artistically if there were more support. And a lot of people make the decision not to pursue it out of fear, instead of, which is about fear of logistics and practicality. And so, yeah, I wish there were, much greater support. But, getting back to what everyone's saying about being an artist, I mean, I think it's a lot of the onus is also on the creative musician to have the confidence to put yourself out there, because that is what helps you sustain a career is making music that connects with other people. And so as long as, artists are really putting their all and their heart into what they're doing, I'd like to believe that there's a way to make it work. But I do think we need to support each other as much as possible.
Yeah, I'm going to put on my Cabrillo Festival music director hat here for just 1 second. We also create, in the first part of the festival, the first week, we have these conductors, composers workshop, which is exactly for this reason. It's because we want to encourage the next generation of composers and conductors to actually take on this challenge, this massive challenge, which is a life in the creative arts, in the performing arts, which seems like such an impossible endeavor. But somehow we all end up finding our own way in making it happen. And the world needs so much of this, so much of you, and so much of what the creative sector has to offer. And so we provide this in Cabrillo. We encourage the younger generation to take on. Now, we're quickly running out of time, actually, but I want to take one moment, maybe go around with everyone. And if you were to invite a friend to Cabrillo, like in one sentence, how would you invite them? In some ways, describe from your own perspective why someone should come to Cabrillo and participate. And I'll call everyone's name here so that we see. We start with, let's see, Jennifer, you're the first one on my screen.
The most exciting thing you'll experience all year. Seriously, check it out.
Beautiful. Anna.
To be part of a community, to hear a whole range of different styles of music all together.
Awesome. Peter.
I would say to go see the sea lions, go get coffee, enjoy the beach, and enjoy some amazing music.
Excellent. Sebastian.
Well, I'd say that it's both an intense, meaningful experience, but it's also a lot of fun for all of the interactions with people.
Andrea.
Come and hear the music that's being made right now by your contemporaries. It's pretty special.
Cool. Dan.
Yep, it's all about exciting new developments, diversity of styles of music being played, and just a great community.
Sarah.
I would say it's the deepest possible exploration of the orchestral collaborative process.
Carlos.
The music, community, and the weather.
Bora.
Witness music, history literally being made in front of your eyes. We're not dead yet.
Xavier.
Good time. Come on down.
Beautiful. Well, I have to, we received the comment actually, and I will make this correction because I said one thing, which was that, it's nice to see composers that are also, regular human beings. And the comment was, no, they're not. They're extraordinary human beings. So I want to thank you all for participating in our presentation of what the Cabrillo Festival is. You really are, the heart and the soul of what the Cabrillo Festival is, because the whole purpose of the festival is to celebrate your creativity, to celebrate your courage to put on a piece of paper what is so deep within your heart. And we thank you for that. I personally thank you for being part of our presentation as well. We thank everyone for participating and listening to what we have to do, and we cannot wait to see you next summer. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.